I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to write about something like this, but here I am. Honestly, I don't even know where to start. My life was pretty simple, married to the woman I loved, working a decent job, trying to plan a future that didn't involve a whole lot of surprises. We had our ups and downs, but I believed in us. At least, I did until a few weeks ago when everything fell apart. It started with tiny hints, her phone buzzing late at night, quick glances when she thought I wasn't looking. I brushed them off, telling myself everyone's got secrets. But then I found the damn evidence. It was on her phone, a picture of her and my best friend, Mark, in what looked like a hotel room. Close-up shot, her face turned away, but the necktie and the way she was gripping his shirt told me everything I didn't want to see. I stared at it for what felt like hours, my stomach twisting into a knot that refused to loosen. That night I confronted her. I was trembling, trying to keep my voice steady. "What the hell is this? Who is this guy? And what are you doing with him?" I wanted to scream, but instead it came out like a broken whisper. She froze, then a smug smile spread across her face. "Oh, you saw that? Yeah, Mark and I, well, it's complicated. You wouldn't understand." "Complicated? You're cheating on me, aren't you?" My voice cracked and I felt my palms sweat. I clenched my fist so tight I thought my nails might break the skin. "You've been lying for months. All those late nights, the secret calls, I knew something was off." She shrugged and leaned back, her eyes glinting. "You're not perfect either. I just needed something more. You're not the man I thought you were." That was the moment my world shattered. I didn't cry, I couldn't. All I felt was a cold, heavy rage that simmered beneath my skin. How could she do this? How could she betray me, our vows, our plans, just like that? I wanted to yell, I wanted to break something, but instead I just stared at her and felt a new, bitter seed grow inside me. I've always been a patient guy, but this was different. It was like a floodgate burst. Open, I knew I couldn't stay or trust her anymore, not with this revelation hanging over everything. Yet I also knew I needed to do something. I'd always believed in revenge, but I never thought I'd actually act on it. Now, it felt like the only way to get even. I spent the next few days trying to process what I'd seen, trying to hold on to some shred of dignity as my mind kept circling back to Mark and her. I saw her face in my mind, smug, confident, so sure she could get away with it. That's when I realized something else. I wasn't just angry. I was hurt, betrayed, and more than anything, I was sick of feeling powerless. She thought she had pulled one over me, that I'd crumble, beg, or just go away quietly. Well, she was dead wrong. I began plotting, not something reckless, something calculated. I had to make her see what she threw away, what she lost by cheating. But first, I needed proof. The photo was just the beginning. I started digging, searching through her social media, phone backups, anything I could get my hands on. I wanted to catch her red-handed again, something more undeniable. And the more I looked, the more I realized she wasn't even subtle. She thought she was clever, but she was careless. I didn't want to just walk away or confront her again without backup. I wanted her to realize what she lost. That's where my plan took shape. I'd set her up in her own game, turn her own secrets against her. I had a few tricks up my sleeve, things I knew would shake her confidence to its core. I'd make her regret ever crossing that line. But for now, I kept it quiet. I kept the evidence close, waiting for the right moment. The anger inside me was burning hot like acid in my chest. I could feel it growing stronger, sharper. I knew one thing, this wasn't going to end with her just apologizing and moving on. Not after what I'd seen. No, I'd make sure she understood that she messed with the wrong person, that she couldn't just cheat and get away with it. And so I waited, watching her every move, knowing that when I finally acted, it would be on my terms, and she wouldn't see it coming. I just needed to hold on a little longer. The storm was coming, and she had no idea what was about to hit her. That waiting period felt like an eternity, but honestly, I needed it. I needed to get my head straight, plan my next move with clarity instead of blind rage. Every time she left the house, I'd sift through her things, look at her social media activity, try to figure out what other secrets she kept hidden. My stomach churned each time I found something new, another message, a phone, a location she'd visited. It was like peeling back layers of a lie she'd carefully constructed. One night I finally hit pay dirt. I managed to hack into her email account, something I'd never thought I'd do but now saw as necessary. and what I found made my jaw tight. There were messages between her and Mark, more than just flirtation. They had plans, specific ones, about sneaking away, meeting up, starting new lives. It was all laid out in their emails, casual but loaded with promises and lies. I read her words, feeling my fists clench so tight my nails threatened to puncture my palms. "Tonight's the night." One email read, "Can't wait to finally see you. Mark, no more hiding." That was it. She planned this. She'd been seeing him behind my back for months, maybe longer. The betrayal burned like acid, and I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her get away with it, not without consequences. I took screenshots of everything, saved the emails, printed copies. I wanted undeniable proof, but I also wanted her to see how far I'd gone, how much I'd uncovered. This wasn't just about her cheating anymore. It was about her lying, manipulating, and planning to throw it all away. The next day I confronted her again, this time with the evidence spread out on the kitchen table like a deck of cards I was ready to play. Her face paled as she saw the printed emails, her eyes darting from the papers to me. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" I asked, voice low but trembling. "You've been planning this for months, haven't you?" She tried to brush past, but I blocked her. "Don't even try to lie. I've got everything, your messages, your plans. You thought you could cheat on me and I'd just accept it. No way." She looked furious, but I saw the flicker of panic behind her eyes. Good, that's exactly what I wanted. I was done playing nice. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. "You're a fool if you think you can just walk away after this," I said, voice cold now. "You're not just a cheating wife, you're a liar, and I want out, but I'm not letting you ruin me without a fight." Her voice shook as she spat. "You're overreacting. It's not what it looks like." "Oh, I think it is," I said. "And once I make sure everyone knows what you did, you'll be the one losing, not me." That night I stayed up late crafting my plan. I knew I couldn't just confront her, leave everything as it was, and walk away. No, I had to make sure she paid for what she did. I started working on ways to make her regret this, something that would hit her where it hurt, but without crossing lines beyond betrayal. I found out she'd been seeing Mark at a local hotel, just a few blocks from our house. I decided that I'd turn her own game against her. I'd set a trap, but not for her. I wanted to make it clear that I knew everything, that I had the power now. I started by planting a recording device in her purse when she wasn't looking, a small voice recorder I bought online. It was simple, just to catch her admitting the affair, or at least saying something that proved she knew she was caught. I wasn't interested in spying for the sake of spying. I was doing this to wake her up, to humiliate her for her betrayal. If I could get her to admit it outright, I'd have the final piece of my puzzle. The night I set everything in motion, I felt a strange mixture of anticipation and nausea. My stomach was tight, like I'd swallowed a stone. I kept telling myself I was doing this for closure, for respect. Whatever the outcome, I knew I couldn't stay in this relationship anymore, not after this bombshell. A few hours later, I saw her leave the house with her purse. I followed her at a safe distance, keeping to the shadows. The hotel was just a few blocks away. I parked around the corner, waiting for her to come back, my ears buzzing with every sound. When she returned, she looked nervous, glancing around as if she expected to be caught. Inside, I hid in the shadows, waiting for her to speak. The moment came when she pulled out her phone and started texting. I pressed the record button on the device, holding my breath as her voice drifted into the small microphone. "Mark's here," she whispered. "It's all happening tonight. I'm finally free." That was all I needed. My heart hammered in my chest as I took a step back, knowing that this was the start of the end. When she finally went to bed, I tiptoed into her purse, retrieved the recorder, and slipped away, feeling the weight of my plan settling in. I knew this was only the beginning. The next step was making sure everyone else knew, too. She'd betrayed me, and I was about to make damn sure she paid for it. I had everything I needed now: proof, a plan, and the resolve to follow through. The game was on, and she was about to learn just how ruthless I could be. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of clarity. The adrenaline from the night before still buzzed in my veins, but now I had a plan solidified. I knew what I had to do, and I was ready to execute it. I kept my phone close, reviewing the recordings I'd made, replaying her voice as she confirmed her plans. That simple phrase, "It's all happening tonight," was enough to set things in motion. I spent the day gathering everything I could to back up my case. I printed out the emails, saved screenshots, and transferred all the recordings to a secure thumb drive. I wanted irrefutable proof, enough to make her realize she wasn't just caught, she was cornered. My mind kept circling around what I'd say when I confronted her again, but I already knew. I needed her to feel cornered, to see that I wasn't just the betrayed husband. I was the one who held all the cards now. That evening, I took a different route home just to keep an eye on the house. I parked a few blocks away, pretending to be just another neighbor out for a walk. She arrived home later than usual, her face tight, eyes darting around. She looked guilty and afraid. I felt a rush of satisfaction mixed with disgust. She thought she could cheat behind my back, lie, and then keep living her life like nothing had happened. Well, I was about to show her otherwise. I waited until she went to bed, then slipped into the living room where I'd hidden the evidence. I took out my laptop, plugged in the thumb drive, and made sure everything was in order. The emails, the recordings, everything. I set up a little presentation, an outline of her lies, her plans, and the proof I'd collected. I wanted her to see that she'd lost control, that I had turned her own game against her. The moment I pressed play, her voice filled the room, clear as day, revealing her intentions and her betrayal. I watched her face as she listened, saw her eyes widen in shock, then narrow in anger. I knew she understood that I had everything, more than enough to tear her apart if I wanted to. But I didn't do it yet. No, this was just the warning shot. I printed out the email chains and placed them on the coffee table. Then, I left a copy of the recordings on her phone. Labeled "Your Own Words." When I finally called her upstairs, she looked like a trapped animal, desperate and furious. I confronted her face to face for the first time since discovering her plans. "You lied, you cheated, and now you're going to tell me why I shouldn't walk out that door and never look back." She looked at me with trembling lips. "I don't know what you're talking about. You're overreacting." I was just spying on me, lying behind my back, plotting with Mark. I cut her off, voice cold. "You thought you could get away with it, didn't you?" Her shoulders slumped and she let out a bitter laugh. "You really think you've got me now? You're just a scared little man who's too late." "Too late," I echoed. "No, it's just the beginning. I've got everything you ever said, every plan, every lie, and I'm done pretending this is okay." Her eyes flashed with defiance. "What are you going to do? Blackmail me? Post those stupid emails? Go ahead, see if I care." I let that hang for a moment, then leaned in. "No, I'm not going to post anything. That's too easy. I'm going to do something much better. I'm going to make sure you regret ever crossing me." She scoffed. "You're all talk, just like always." "Oh, I'm going to show you," I said quietly. "Starting tomorrow, I'm calling a lawyer. I want a divorce, and I want you out of this house." Her face twisted with anger. "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, I dare," I said, standing straight. "Because I'm done playing nice. You want to cheat, lie, and scheme? Fine. But I'm not just going to let you walk away with a clean conscience. You're going to see what betrayal really costs." That was the moment I knew I'd sealed my decision. There was no turning back now. I handed her a small envelope I'd prepared, containing the copies of everything I'd gathered. Her eyes flicked over it, her face pale, then flushed with rage. "Take these," I said, "and think about what you've done. I'm done being your fool." She clenched her fists and looked like she wanted to scream, but she knew she'd lost her grip. That night, I stayed awake, watching her, feeling the cold satisfaction of knowing I'd finally turned the tables. The next morning, I went straight to my lawyer's office. I handed over the evidence and explained everything. The look on her face when she saw the files was priceless, like she'd realized her entire world was about to shatter. I knew I had her cornered now. The pieces were in motion. As I left the lawyer's office, I felt a strange wave of relief and something darker, a sense of justice. I'd let her betray me, but now I was taking control. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming myself from her lies. I knew the fallout would come, but I was ready. Finally, I'd take back what was mine and walk away with my head held high. The next step was clear. I'd hand her the keys, say goodbye, and close this chapter forever. The day I handed her the keys was the day everything changed. I didn't want to drag it out, didn't want to give her any false hope. I knew she expected some drawn-out scene or tears, but I was beyond that now. I had my plan, I'd done what I could, and it was time to finalize everything. I waited until she was at work, just to make sure she wouldn't be there when I handed over the house. I'd already packed her things, clothes, jewelry, the little sentimental crap she clung to, and left them in a tidy pile on the porch. I'd already told my lawyer to prepare the papers, so all I had to do now was get her to sign them. The pounding of my heart was almost worse than the anger ever was. I took a deep breath, trying to block out the world around me, and then I stepped out front. The house looked normal, too normal, like this was just another day. I'd never felt so numb. When she pulled in from work, her eyes immediately went to the pile outside. I saw her stiffen, her face shutting down in that cold, calculated way she always used when she was hiding something. "You left my stuff on the porch," she said, voice flat. "Yeah," I said, voice steady. "And I've got something for you." I pulled the envelope from my pocket, the one containing all the evidence, the proof she'd betrayed everything we had. Her eyes flicked to it, disbelief flickering across her face. "Sign these," I said, extending the papers. "It's over, you're out of the house, effective immediately." She hesitated, then snatched the papers. Her hands trembled as she tried to read, but I saw her eyes darting over the words, knowing it was all real. She looked at me then, that mixture of fury and fear in her eyes. "Why are you doing this? You're ruining everything." "No," I cut her off sharply. "You did that all on your own. You betrayed me, and I'm done pretending it's okay. You wanted to cheat, to lie, to sneak around. Now you get to live with the consequences." She glared, her voice rising in a bitter snarl. "You think you're so clever, huh? Just because you found some emails and recordings doesn't mean you've won. This isn't over." "Oh, I think it is," I said, voice cold. "You're leaving, and I never want to see you again. Take your things, leave, and don't come back. I'll be changing the locks tomorrow." She ripped the pen from my hand, scribbled her signature with a trembling grip, then shoved the papers back at me. Her face was flushed, eyes wet with rage and humiliation. "Enjoy your little victory," she spat. "You're nothing, just a scared little man with no idea what he's lost." I looked at her one last time, feeling a strange mix of relief and emptiness. "Goodbye," I said simply, turning away as she stormed inside to grab her things. I stayed out front, watching her collect a few bags, knowing I'd never see her again. As she drove off, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders, but also a strange hollow ache deep inside. I'd won her out, but at what cost? I knew the fallout was coming, but I was done playing the victim. I'd taken my power back, and for the first time in weeks I could breathe. The silence that settled in after she left was almost deafening. A part of me wondered if I'd gone too far, if I'd crossed some invisible line. But then I remembered her face, her betrayal, and I knew I'd done what I had to do. This was my life now, and I wasn't going to let her destroy it any further. That night, I sat alone in the house, the quiet, almost oppressive. My mind kept replaying everything, the betrayals, the lies, the moment I handed her the papers. It all felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's story unfold. But I knew one thing for sure: I was finally free. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, took a long sip, and looked around at the empty house. It was strange, cold, hollow, but also mine again. I realized I'd spent so long trying to hold everything together, trying to keep the illusion of a perfect marriage. Now I could finally start rebuilding piece by piece, and that's when I knew the real test would come. Not in the fallout or in her reaction, but in whether I could trust myself again. Because after everything, I'd learned that sometimes the only way to survive betrayal is to cut it out completely, no matter how much it hurts. But that didn't mean I was done. No, I was just getting started. Days turned into weeks, and I thought I'd finally managed to put everything behind me. The house was eerily quiet, stripped of her things, and I was trying to focus on rebuilding my life, getting back to work, seeing friends, and trying to forget the betrayal that had shattered everything. But deep down, I knew better. Betrayals like this don't just disappear, and I wasn't about to let her get the last word. One afternoon, as I was tidying up the living room, I noticed the small, familiar crack in the paint near the doorway. It had always been minor, but now it seemed like a symbol of everything falling apart. I ran my finger along it, feeling the rough edges. That's when I saw it, something out of place. a tiny, almost invisible scratch on the wall as if someone had tried to hide it. My heart skipped a beat. My stomach dropped because I knew exactly what it was. Someone had been inside the house. Someone had come back. Within minutes, I was moving through every room, checking for signs of intrusion. Nothing was out of place, but I knew I wasn't imagining it. My mind spun back to her, the sneaking around, the secret meetings. She had her faults, but I never thought she'd come back here. That's when I realized she might be trying to send a message, or maybe she'd come to confirm that I'd really gone. I kept my phone in my hand, ready to call the police if needed. I also kept a mental note of the date and time, just in case I needed proof later. But I didn't want her to know I was onto her yet, so I played it cool. I didn't want to seem paranoid or desperate. I just wanted to see what she'd do next. That night, I stayed up, watching the house from the window with my phone ready. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. She'd betrayed me once, and I knew her ego wouldn't let her go quietly. She was a fighter, even if she was a liar. Sure enough, around midnight, I saw a flicker of movement on the porch. Someone was out there. My heart hammered in my chest as I grabbed my phone, ready to record or call. But then I saw her silhouette under the dim porch light, fumbling with a key. She was trying the door. My stomach clenched. This wasn't just an accidental return, it was deliberate. She was coming back. Why? Was she trying to sneak in, or just making sure her lies were still safe? Whatever her reason, I knew I had to act fast. I slipped out the back door quietly, remaining in the shadows, watching as she unlocked the front door. She pushed it open, stepped inside, and for a moment I hesitated. But then I remembered everything: her betrayal, the plan I'd set in motion, and the fact that she'd come back to reclaim her space, her secrets. I decided to confront her head-on. This wasn't the time for subtlety. I quietly stepped closer, just enough to hear her voice from inside. "I know you're there," she whispered into the dark. "I don't care anymore." I pushed the door open slowly, just enough to show myself. "You came back," I said, voice steady but cold. "Didn't expect that, did you?" She spun around, eyes wide with shock. "What are you doing here?" "You thought I wouldn't notice your little visit," I said, stepping inside. "You thought you could sneak back, maybe see if I was stupid enough to forget what you did." She looked furious, then defiant. "I'm not leaving, not yet. I need to know if you're really done, if you're sure you want this to be over." "I am," I said, voice firm. "And I'm not going to let you come back and mess everything up again. You betrayed me, you lied to my face, and I've got the evidence. This wasn't just about cheating, it was about breaking what little trust we had left." She looked like she was about to scream, but I raised my hand to stop her. "No more lies. I've had enough. You lost your chance, and now you're going to stay out of my life." Her eyes flashed with anger, but there was a flicker of fear too. She was trying to hold herself together, but I saw her trembling. That's when I realized I'd won, not in the way she thought, but in my own way. I'd taken back control. "Get out," I demanded, "and don't come back, not ever." She hesitated for a second, then snapped at me. "You're making a mistake." "No," I cut her off sharply. "This was your mistake from the beginning. You crossed lines I never thought you would, and I'm not going to be the one to keep cowering. This is over." Without another word, I turned and walked out to my car. I knew she watched me leave, but I didn't look back. I'd said what I needed to say, done what I needed to do. That night, I finally felt like I was reclaiming my life piece by piece. In that moment, I realized just how much I'd been holding onto: anger, betrayal, guilt. But I also knew I'd survived it all. Somehow, I managed to stay standing. And that was the real victory. Not just in sending her packing, but in proving to myself that I was stronger than I'd ever believed. This wasn't just an end, it was the beginning of something new, and I was ready for it. The days after I threw her out felt like walking through a fog. I kept telling myself I'd be okay, that I'd rebuild, but the ache inside didn't quite fade. It was a strange mixture of relief and hollow exhaustion. I had finally cut her loose, but the damage was done. Trust was shattered, and it left a scar I knew would take time to heal. Still, I refused to let it define me. I'd lost a lot, but I'd also gained clarity. One evening, I sat alone in the quiet house, staring at the empty space where she used to be. The silence was deafening. It pressed down on me like a weight I couldn't shake. I thought about all the hours I'd wasted, the hopes I'd built around someone who turned out to be a stranger. It was a harsh lesson, but one I needed. No more illusions. No more pretending that betrayal was just a mistake. It was a wake-up call. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the keys to the house, the symbol of everything I'd built and now had to let go of. I took a deep breath, feeling the cold metal against my palm. This was it, my final act. I walked to the front door, unlocked it, and placed the keys on the porch step. Then I turned away, leaving her behind, her lies, her betrayal, and closed the door behind me for good. The act felt symbolic, like I was finally closing that chapter of my life. I wanted to believe that by handing over the keys, I was reclaiming my peace, my strength, and my dignity. It was the physical gesture of saying, "This is over. I am done with you." The house was empty now, and so was I, except for the faint echo of everything I'd learned about trust, betrayal, and resilience. Standing there, I realized that the greatest revenge wasn't what I'd done to her, it was what I'd done for myself. I'd taken control, refused to be crushed by her lies, and refused to let her win by default. I may have been betrayed, but I was still standing. I'd survived the storm, and I would come out the other side. Stronger, wiser, and with a clearer sense of who I was. I took one last look at the house, the place where everything fell apart, and then I turned away. I knew I'd never forget, but I also knew I wouldn't let it consume me. I was finally free from her. The betrayal, the lies, the heartbreak, they all belonged to that chapter. Now I had to focus on rebuilding my life from scratch. It wouldn't be easy, but I was determined. As I walked down the driveway, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The pain was still there, sure, but it was muted like a distant echo. I thought about the future, about forgiveness, trust, and starting anew. I knew I couldn't change what happened, but I could choose how to move forward. That was the real power. The road ahead was uncertain. I knew there would be days when I'd doubt myself, when the ghosts of her betrayal would creep back in. But I also knew I didn't have to let them define me. I had the strength to walk past them, to forge a new path. And so I did. I walked away from that house, from the past, and into whatever the future held. Because after everything, I finally understood something vital. Sometimes, the only way to truly reclaim yourself is to let go of the things that no longer serve you, even if it means throwing away what you once believed was forever. That's what real strength looks like. And I was done with her.